Good morning, everyone. I saw this tweet a few days ago and I put it in my little file to pull up when news is a little slow, and today news is a little slow. So I had a look at this and I don't like this so much. So, quote, somehow this little flogging parade for Allah in Toronto, of all places, kind of tells me Trudeau's new migrants not exactly accepting Canada culture or Canadian way of life or values, never mind our religion. Now, I'm not so worried about people accepting our religion, but having tolerance of diversity is a very core Canadian value that I appreciate. But that's not really what this story is about. One, I wanted to establish that this happened in Toronto and Canada. And two, I wanted to show you the media doesn't care and is not reporting about it. They don't even think this is news. This is just a nothing burger. They haven't reported about anything to do with this since at least 2014. And in 2014, well, I'll show you. So I'm going to turn this on, and hopefully there's no volume to it, but there might be, so sorry. So this is going on in Toronto, and it's quite a long clip, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and the festival is called Ashura, and so there's quite a mixed audience, which I thought that was strange, and I wanted to point out. A strange thing. Grab your cell phone and take pictures of these guys self-flagellating. Weird. Very strange. So, and not something that I would imagine that I would do first. Not before having this show anyway. I'd probably do it now. So this was not reported anywhere but by the Toronto Sun. So, and this is by Tariq Fatah. Bare-chested religious self-flagellation has no place on our streets. And that's his title. Link is in the description if you want to read the whole article. I'll share some of it. For many years now, a medieval ritual is being enacted by Muslims on the streets of Canada to mourn the murder 14,000 years ago of Prophet Muhammad's grandson, Hussein ibn Ali, in the Iraqi city of Karbala. This is when his fellow Muslims, loyal to the ruler of the Islamic Caliphate of the time, slaughtered the Prophet Muhammad's entire progeny, save a few women and an ailing son. To put this in perspective, the tragedy observed as Ashura unfolded way back on October 10th, 680 AD. The first time non-Muslim Canadians saw the spectacle of an Ashura march was in 2010, when procession was held in cold weather in Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, and Montreal. Nothing other than mourning songs and symbolic light beatings of the chest were displayed. In the Mideast and the Indian subcontinent, self-flagellation is not just beating the chest in wild unison, but extends to whipping oneself with razor-sharp blades, the ritual of cracking skulls, and bleeding baby boys with cuts on their heads. So one question is this a ritual we want in Canada? Is this how our religious expression laws and our religious freedom laws are going to be used? Because that seems like a misuse of a well-intentioned law, right? Everybody's supposed to have tolerance of diversity, but it is proving more and more difficult to continue to have that tolerance, especially with the right and left so polarized at this point in time. But back to this. Is this what the intent of the law is to allow in Canada? Is this? I don't know. But that's not for me to say, and that's not for this channel to say either. That's a question. That's an open question to you, dear viewer. Do you think that that's what it intends? I don't know. Here's the link. Here's the webpage for the Ashura March. So here's all sorts of information. They've got a Facebook page and a YouTube page and an Instagram page. So if you want to see pictures of this stuff, it's happening. Here's what they say about themselves. 2018 Ashura March. After the incredible confluence of the past year on the Ashura of 1440, we will once again witness the passionate gathering of the, I can't say this, followers on the streets of Toronto on Thursday, September 20th, which coincides with the day of Ashura. The, I can't say this, will begin its journey at 9:30 a.m. from Mel Asman Square, passing through the heart of North York on Yonge Street, arriving at the Iranian Plaza for the noon of Ashura. Okay, so and that culminated in this image. So this did happen in Toronto, and this is happening, and this is being propagated. And is that what we want? So here's more pictures. There was a press release released, and it says photos Ashura procession in Toronto, Canada. And it says, here's all this is intended for press to pick up. And so I went looking for the press to pick it up. So I looked for Ashura on CBC. They've 5 articles, and these aren't in date. These aren't ordered by date, but none of them are very relevant. And the one that actually has anything to do with the Ashura that I'm talking about was more than 10 years ago, 2007. So I thought, okay, maybe because it didn't happen in Toronto, maybe it's Toronto Star. We'll look at a more local paper. And no, they've got 22 stories about Ashura. And there weren't any that were talking about what happened on September 20th, and there wasn't really any very modern topics about, the 2017 march or the 2016 march or the 2015 march. There's lots of years between. Anyway, they did have one, and the one that they had was it's just an image, and really no other context. And it could be my ad blocker is just blocking it. I'm not sure. The Toronto Star website is particularly terrible, I have to say. But this is it. So, and if you're wondering what the red is, well, it's not paint. So is that what our religious freedom laws are meant to include in Canada? How about halal murders of live goats in Milton? Is that what our laws are intending? And how about our media? Why are they not reporting on this stuff, right? Like, I thought right away, this isn't Canada. This isn't happening in Canada. This didn't happen this year. And then part 2 is I have to verify that because I'm going to look this up. And part 3 is, wow, it's happening. And it started in 2010, and this is how far we've come. Wild, right? And our media is absolutely silent. Not one word. Right? This happened in Toronto. Nothing. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. They're just going to, well, I mean, look at England. Look at Paris. So that's concerning to me. Concerning because the media is not reporting it. Concerning because it's protected by law. The religious ceremonies seem to be, I mean, they're not acting encumbered at all. This is as out and plain as day as you can get, right? Yeah. And I'm all for religious freedom right up until we start seeing that religious freedom includes literal self-flagellation, right? At this point, I don't know. And I'm more talking about the intent of the law. Religion, your religion is your religion, and you do what you feel comfortable with regards to your religion. I'm talking specifically about how your religion impacts other Canadian citizens, and 2, the laws that govern that, and 3, the media that's supposed to report to the people that isn't telling us anything. So here's Justin Trudeau's personal days. Moving on to a lighter story. I didn't think that was going to get that dark, and I apologize if I ruined your Saturday. I'm sorry. Well, blame Justin Trudeau. I do. So this is Justin Trudeau's personal days marked on a public calendar from January. It's actually, I think I did last year too. I can't remember if I actually did last year. No, January I started. So from January to now, his personal days are mapped on a publicly available calendar, and the input data is just from the itinerary, Justin's own itinerary on the Parliament website. So it's according to that. These are his personal days. And I just wanted to show you that. My website has the calendar accessible as well. If you're wandering around the internet and want to read up about what's happening in Canadian politics, slide on over to CanadaPoly.com. I don't know. I figured I'd show you guys that I have a website. And the last story I wanted to show you is Thomas Sowell's 3 questions to Liberals that will debunk every one of their arguments. And I like these 3 questions. This is the kind of stuff that I read before bed, so I'm a little crazy maybe. But I will tell you the 3 questions in just a minute. I find the first 2 really good. The last one is difficult because it's difficult, and I'll explain my problem with the last one when I talk about it. But I did want to say, if you don't know who Thomas Sowell is, look him up. He is a very intelligent person who's been fighting against leftist ideology since the 60s. So imagine how difficult that is. Okay, so back to the article. So when presented with leftist idealism as to how to fix the world, here's the first question to ask. Compared to what? The leftist idea is the solution compared to what? Look at the argument for government healthcare. Government healthcare serves the poor compared to what? Strong arguments can be made for the poor, that the poor are better off in terms of care and options under a free market system. The second question, so I like the first question because it gives you a marker that you can talk about based in reality. A lot of the comparison is, well, our system is terrible. Well, what are you comparing it to? Are you comparing it to North Korea, or are you comparing it to the United States, or even Britain at this point in time, right? Like which argument are we going to make here? Because if you're comparing it to an idyllic utopian fantasy, well, I'm never going to win, right? I'm never even going to come close, because you can't come close. And a lot of times that's the problem when you're arguing with ideologues, right? They've got an idea in their head, and there's no amount of fact that's going to move it, because they're invested in the idea. They've taken it on as part of their persona, as part of who they are. They identify, I am a vegan, right? Or I am a whatever it is. Doesn't matter. So that's hard to move people off of, but it gives you a very, very good base in reality. Here's your idea. Here's the reality of it. Compared to what? So, second question Sowell presents is, at what price? What price will be paid for the leftist ideal to be implemented? This leads to the discussion of if it's worth it or not, or even realistic. For this example, consider the argument for open borders. Strong arguments based on at what price can be made against having open borders. There are financial costs, national security costs, personal safety costs, national identity costs, functional government costs, national economy costs, job costs, and many more. The feel-good concept of no borders is nothing more than a feel-good concept. It cannot withstand close scrutiny in terms of cost and practical implementation. The final question is, what evidence do you have? So I have a problem with this one. The evidence question is, everybody's asking for evidence. And if you looked at the Lindsay and Boghossian study, they talk about how they've just manufactured all the evidence, right? Like, I've had arguments with people on Reddit who say the science is settled for global warming, and gender is definitely a spectrum, and I don't know what I'm talking about because I haven't read these studies. And so they cite these studies, and Boghossian and Lindsay said the problem isn't that they're misinformed or anything to that effect. They're citing this knowledge that they have. They believe that they're sharing the gospel truth, for lack of a better term. And it's funny that I went there because the other part of that argument was they were saying that it's easier to have an argument with a person of faith, a person who believes in God, about God, because at some point it becomes a matter of faith. But when you're arguing with these ideologues, these people who are just entrapped by this idea, it's not a matter of faith. They believe that they 100% know. They believe that there is data out there that backs up the things that they're saying, and that the people, you and I, who are combating the idea, are coming back to them with a different idea, saying, no, maybe we should look at this a little bit closer. Maybe we shouldn't be paying taxes on carbon right now, because that's not going to change anything. In Canada, 3.4% of the global emissions are Canadian, so paying carbon tax isn't going to affect the world at all. Zero, not at all. But those facts don't matter, right? So what do you do, right? So that's the problem I have with this one. When the evidence is manufactured to support their cause, they feel more emboldened, they feel more power, and they feel like people who are fighting against them, people who are talking, bringing up dangerous ideas or scary ideas that they need to have silenced, are doing a disservice. And so that's the quagmire we've gotten ourselves into. That's the polarization of the media. That's the lack of reporting on stuff like this, right? This is fundamentally different than people have seen ever in Canada, ever. And if you were walking down Yonge Street in 1968 and you saw this, that would be front page, what is going on, right? And the problem now is that the media has no inclination to report. None. And the people are just as happy to hear that Justin Trudeau's socks are wonderful and his hair is fantastic and Sophie can't sing so well, right? That's what they want to hear. And oh, by the way, the monarchs are getting married and the downtrodden are being picked up by Canadians helping. It just, the propaganda and the misinformation coming out of the spheres that are supposed to inform us, it's so concerning. So look up Thomas Sowell. And if you can stand having a conversation with a lefty, I hope I've given you some ammunition to help facilitate that conversation, and maybe a red pill here or there. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful Saturday.